Hey everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Hyperhours. Today we have someone very special. He's had an illustrious career, I would say a marketing guru, a creative pundit, but more importantly, a very humble personality. We're really excited to have Mr. Thomas Xavier, who set up Leo Burnett Orchard in India, but has been with Leo Burnett for almost 15 years and has started something on his own. So, hi Thomas, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So yes, I think one thing that I think I would just start off with. You've been in this industry for so long, and how has the change been in terms of advertising, right? Be it from print to TV to Facebook to now short videos. How has the change been for you?
So, in one word, it's of course tectonic, is what I would say. But on the other hand, it's something that has been like a very exciting blur for me because I got into this business almost 30 years ago at the time when India was getting globalized, which is when, in a way, India was discovering marketing and all the other things that came with it. So I wanted to be in a creative part of marketing, which is advertising, and I saw, all these multinationals coming into this country and trying to connect with our audiences. So advertising played a big role. But as the decades roll by, globalization, then of course the IT revolution, then at the turn of the century, the dot-com boom, then a few years into that, the digital revolution. Yeah. Then within digital revolution, several other revolutions, and now we have what we call the AI revolution. Yes. And in all of this, what I've realized is, it's like I'm being a passenger on something that is like a really roller coaster ride. And what I've really enjoyed about it is that I've always been excited. And so in some sense, I'm the same person who joined. So I feel that this profession has kept me young. And that's what really excites me about advertising. And for people in the communication business, the one thing I would say is going to be always a draw is the ability to reinvent yourself. So yeah, in the last 30 years, I've reinvented myself many times.
Right, and how did you go about reinventing? Because it's almost like unlearning something and then learning a new thing. How has that process been?
So, see, at the end of the day, marketing is not a science. Though people might say it has, things that look like it's a science. But the science part of marketing is mostly about us trying to put a kind of principle to it, some kind of rule to it. We want to retrofit some kind of pattern with which we can do things with a little more certainty. But the truth is marketing is still an art form. Yes. Okay. So in an art form, what I really believe one should do is do two things. One, constantly revisit the fundamentals and become super competent in that. And having become a master at the fundamentals, just let go when the world changes around you. So what you really do is you still are a student of the fundamentals, but you are a practitioner in the reality. So for me personally, all this change is a way to redeploy the fundamentals and come out with new things. So that's what I think is the most exciting thing about marketing as a field. Yeah.
Right, and I think when new things come up, right, people just jump into it without knowing why or how it's done. If you could just give us the fundamentals, maybe 4 key points everyone should remember when even if the times change, these 4 things will always stay constant.
Okay, I'll answer this only in respect of my domain.
Yes.
Because that's where I have a fairly sure answer. So that's the world of brands and creative communication. Right. So the first thing is you need to know what a brand is. Okay, a brand is one of the most, I would say, differently defined concept in business, because of which different people come at it very, very differently. There's only one definition that has served me well as a practitioner, and much like most other people who are in the client side of the business, the brand actually is an esoteric concept But if the more sure your understanding of it is, the more sure you can deploy your creativity. And I'll tell you what a brand is. A brand is a product or a service with a differentiating idea wrapped around it. And that differentiating idea makes it more valuable.
True.
So, what you make in the factory is not a brand. What you make in the factory is a product. But what you put with your imagination on top of it is what makes it a brand. Now, you can't just put anything you want on top of it. There is a certain kind of method to it. And that method is actually the practice of brand management. So if I were to give an advice to any brand manager, is to know what the role of a brand manager, which is to take this product which the factory has given to you and be the person who brings in that idea. He has to bring together experts who bring that idea, and that idea has to be put around that product consistently over time so that the public desires it. Now, I told you that it cannot be any idea. So I'll give you an example of how you can filter and find the right idea. The role of the idea is to make the product more desirable to the audience. So the idea that makes it more desirable is the best idea. Then the question is, what is the most desirable idea?
Yeah.
The most desirable idea from the consumer's point of view is the one that reflects his own world. And that world usually is indicated through what we call the consumer insight. So if you are a brand manager, you need to know what a brand is, and you need to be fluent in consumer insights. So knowing the consumer, extracting that insight, and using it to tell stories related to that idea, which is a third thing, storytelling.
Yes.
Storytelling is the third competence that a brand manager must have. He may not create those stories, but he should be able to curate those stories, which then comes to the last part, which is you curate it, but a badly executed story also means a story that doesn't reach audiences. So being able to execute those stories actually is the fourth competence. So first is knowing what a brand is. Second is knowing that you have to put an insight-driven idea on the brand, telling stories which make the idea come alive. And the fourth is saying it with craft, which is what execution is about. And I have created some kind, what I call an idea stack. And I call it the idea stack, which compresses all of this. The product idea, what's made in the factory, the brand idea, which is what the consumers see in the product beyond just the tangible version, which is the idea.
Yes.
Then you have your creative idea, which is your storytelling platform, and with which you do 3, 4, 5, sometimes in the case of international brands, successful brands, you do 100, 200 executions, and that's your execution idea. So this is what a brand manager should know.
Wow, okay. So I think this is so true as what a brand manager should do, because in the corporate life, unfortunately, the term brand manager has just been abused. Like they are just, I don't know what, they're just like talking, they're working on social media also, they're just managing day to day. Then it's not about execution, and storytelling has almost died in today's day and age. So do you think storytelling is that one thing that stayed common in advertising since day one of print?
Absolutely. In fact, storytelling is what made marketing come alive for audiences. Without storytelling, marketing is just distribution or pricing or even, let's say, producing. Storytelling is the place where the product gets a personality and comes alive in the imagination of audiences. And it is the number one competence of creative people. As a brand manager, you need to be fluent in the language of storytelling so that you are able to, like I said, curate it from people who create it.
Right. So come to storytelling. So in today's day and age where short videos are the thing, you just have 30 seconds to tell your story, but actually 3 seconds to even capture the audience's attention. So how do you approach storytelling in a short video format?
Okay. So what's a story? So you need to know what is a story, so that you can then think of, let's say, a 3-hour format, which is probably 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. So you need to know what is a story. So you need to know what is a story, so that you can then think of, let's say, a 3-hour format, which is probably 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. So you need to know what is a story, so that you can then think of, let's say, a 3-hour format, which is probably 30 a Bollywood movie,
Right.
or a 2-hour format, which is a Hollywood movie,
Correct.
and or it could be a theatrical performance. And as you keep bringing the durations down, you come closer to advertising. It's all still stories. But what's a story? So a story is a pattern of events, but that pattern has some kind of timeless logic to it. And I'll give you what that pattern is. Once upon a time, suddenly,
Oh.
luckily, and they lived happily ever after.
Oh.
So once upon a time, there was a princess.
Oh, yes.
Suddenly, you can insert the bad queen. Luckily, you have the prince
Charming.
coming,
Oh,
and
my
then
God.
you have happily ever after. Now you bring it back into the world of brands and storytelling. Once upon a time, there was a product. Suddenly, it had a problem, but you used an insight. Luckily, you got a story. You told the story, and the brand lived happily ever after.
Oh,
So now
wow.
that's the kind of flow of narrative that keeps the audience engaged. So storytelling is nothing but a way of communicating in a manner in which you communicate a central idea, but in a manner in which it registers in the people's mind.
Yeah.
And the more imaginative the story, the more it lasts. Of course, when you look back, the stories that we have told each other are the ones that stand the test of time. So, at the heart of all great brands, the most timeless aspect of the brand are the stories that they have told,
That's so true.
which is why product is very important to start off a brand, but over time, it's the stories that keep the brand alive, which is why storytelling is one of the biggest assets of great brands. And if you were to go and see the balance sheets of the companies that own these brands, some of the most valuable assets in the balance sheet is goodwill, which is actually brand equity. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's brilliant. I think I'm just wowed by the example of a fairy tale. I think that's beautiful. Now, coming to, you mentioned about storytelling and brands. In your career, which were the brands that really stood out, or the brands that you worked with that incorporated the storytelling or stood the, fate of time to kind of be there in the market?
So, the reason why I got into advertising was I wanted to tell stories on behalf of brands. So, over the last 30 years, I've had the chance to tell lots of stories about brands. But sometimes you work on certain brands where the stories did a lot more than they did in other situations. So, I have some personal favorites. I'll try and use some familiar brands first so that you will see the role of the story. Now, you've heard of this brand Air Deccan?
Yes.
Okay. So Air Deccan is a brand that brought the low-fare revolution to this country. Now, this brand, when it came to this country, came with the product idea of bringing low fares into this country,
Correct.
modeled on some of the low-fare airlines abroad.
Right.
Now, what we told the client is, if you say your story is low fares, you run the risk of running out of steam in 6 months. On the other hand, you could also run the risk of being perceived as a brand which is all about, discounts.
Yes.
So, even though low fare and discount is a story, it's not a story that is engaging, or is it something that has long-term value? So, we went back to this framework idea stack that I told you. We had a low-fare airline, which is the product. But if you think of the consumer's world and extract an insight, that insight can actually give you the foundations for a great brand. And that's what we did. We looked at the Indian audience, and I'm talking 2002, 2003, and you won't believe almost 99% of India had not entered an aeroplane until then.
Yes. Neither did I.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what does that mean? It's not about low fares. It's about you being able to enter the plane. It's a different story, right?
Yes.
So the insight which came from that was 99% of India has not seen the inside of a plane. So this is not about low fare as a proposition. It's about being able to fly, the freedom to go by air. So we took that story and created a brand which was about bringing flying within the reach of the common man.
Wow.
That's the brand idea.
Yes, yes.
The second part of the stack that I talked of.
Correct.
The third, which is a storytelling platform, was when we wanted to tell the story of people flying, and they are now able to fly. We found that on a typical air deccan flight, almost 60% of people were flying for the first time.
Wow. Oh.
So if you stand at the the beginning of
Right,
the
right,
rows
right.
and stand there like the air hostess view of the passengers, 60% of people are sitting in an aircraft for the first time.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So
I
we said,
don't, yeah.
so we said let's tell that story. So tell the story of the first time flyer, and we did communication which was all about first time flying, and yeah, we did a film which took a little liberty because yeah, it took a long time for India to get to fly. So we made the film a little extra long, and the film was actually 2.5 minutes long.
Oh, wow.
We didn't have commercial breaks which were long enough to accommodate the film. So we went to channels and said, give us that time. I'm talking 2005, little before YouTube started. And the channels were quite intrigued by this advertising disruption. And then they gave us the time. They even gave us the permission to draw attention to that film through promos for an ad.
Oh.
So again, I'm talking of pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook,
Yes.
pre-YouTube. So we got people to come and see the film, and of course the film did well. So well, in fact, when the channel ratings came, they found that the channel viewership went up during the times of the ad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So sometimes advertising can
Yes.
really make the brand get the stage that
Yes,
it deserves. So yeah, so that's one brand that I really enjoyed working on. And of course, sometimes you don't work on such big, mandates
Right.
where the whole nation is involved. Sometimes you work on products which are, with very little, let's say, a differentiating proposition. So, have you heard of Vaseline petroleum jelly?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we all use it. Vaseline petroleum jelly is what we use to, it's just petroleum jelly, generic stuff,
Yes,
but
yes,
it comes
yes.
in a bottle, blue color label, and you put it on your skin for, dry skin. Now, what Hindustan Lever found was that there is an opportunity to expand the franchise of Vaseline petroleum jelly by focusing on specific skin needs where the same product can be used and you can make another brand out of it. So they found that this petroleum jelly that you put on your skin, on your hand or feet, is also very good on your lips during winter.
Oh.
Okay. So they said that, but the same jar, you don't want to put it on your hand and on your lip because you dip into it,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So they said, let's make a chapstick out of it. So Vaseline petroleum jelly became a chapstick, and we called it Lip Guard. So it's the same product, but we branded it with a problem being solved that I guard your lips. Now you have to sell this product. Now, there's nothing new. It's the same petroleum jelly in a chapstick form. Only thing, you use it specifically for your lips and it's a personal product. So then you use the same construct. In the factory, you make
Yeah.
a lipstick, a chapstick for lips. But what's the brand idea? A brand idea is something that the product translates into a benefit for the consumer. So we asked the consumer, what can a chapstick do for you? I said, it keeps my lips dry. But one insight I want to give you now is emotional insights work deeper than rational insights.
Yes, yes.
So when we asked for emotionalizing this insight of keeping your lips dry, they said, you know what, sometimes when your lips are dry, you feel that stretch feeling and it kind of makes it difficult even to smile.
Oh.
So these are young people, college going kids, and we said, yeah, that's a very hairline of an opportunity. And we said, Lip Guard, it's a smile protector.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't protect your lips, it protects your smile. So then we told a story about how someone can't smile because of which a date goes wrong. But then with Lip Guard, he's able to get back.
Yeah.
So this is a very, as I would put it, a little, everyday story.
Yeah.
But you can still tell stories, and the beauty is that this film ran for 5 years. And for 5 years, Lipguard was able to get a premium for the same product made in the factory. You were able to deliver a better benefit and for which the consumer was willing to pay more. Which brings me to a very important point about brands. The role of branding is not just to make a product visible or attractive to the consumer. He actually will pay you more,
That is so true.
isn't it?
Yes. So, Thomas, why is emotion so important, in a brand or storytelling?
So, here's something I want to leave you with. If there's something which I want you to remember beyond all else that I spoke about, it is the fact that emotion is what constitutes the most valuable part of a brand. Because it's the emotion for which a consumer will pay a premium. If you take a product and sell it just as a functional product, there is a tangible value for it, which the consumer will rationally assess and pay for. But if you want to make a profit and be in business so that you make even better products, you need to be able to fetch a premium. And the way to do that is to impute an emotion on this product. This emotion is what will make the consumer pay more, way more than rationally for that product. It's the same emotion that actually makes the product deliver more value for the consumer in his life.
Yes.
So this is what great marketers know, that we make products in the factory, but brands add emotion which add value to people's lives for which they're willing to pay more. That's why emotion is so important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think this one particular brand, which is very, very famous, and obviously you would know this, Apple, right? Like they can charge whatever they want, but the premiumness of it, or what is the emotion that they are selling?
So Apple is of course, it's an example that everybody wants to be, and if you go back and see the history of Apple, it all didn't happen overnight. It was actually the intent of the founders and their doggedness to actually keep telling people that this is not just a product that you're buying for a certain amount of money, but this is a product that is allowing you to do certain things in life which was previously impossible. Right. So if you think about it, Apple actually opened up the joys of a computer or computing back in the 70s and the early 80s. Before that, computers were only for technical people.
Correct.
So Apple was not just giving a computer, but actually was releasing you to magnify your life and your achievements with a computer. Now, today, as all of this has snowballed forward, Apple has evolved into something more than just a brand that empowers you to the power of computing.
Correct.
What Apple really does is takes you into a heightened sense of joy in using technology. So Apple has taken this emotion called joy and put it into technology. And they do it at multiple levels, not just in advertising. In fact, today they do advertising far less than what they did in the past. Today the emotion comes from design.
Yes, that is so true.
Design is another language which is great for storytelling. Advertising is more like a narrative form. Design is something that is static, but the way a consumer's sensibility is triggered by those cues is what design is what makes design so valuable. So Apple today is so prized because they have the ability to trigger emotion in you through design. That's why Apple is so valuable today. And this same design, it tells stories, but not in conventional forms, which brings me to another important point about storytelling, which is the third part of the story idea stack. Storytelling is not just in audiovisual or let's say static narratives. Storytelling is everywhere. Storytelling exists in images. Storytelling exists in product forms. Storytelling exists in the way in which a product deploys itself in the consumer's world, the way in which you use it every day. Storytelling possibilities are there. So the ability to tell stories at every touch point through the lifetime of a brand is what is the value that the brand brings into consumers' life, and that's what they pay a premium for. Apple's, I would say, singular strength is being able to unleash storytelling all through its existence in your life.
Yes. So true. And coming to storytelling, okay, so as a founder, I've been hearing this quite a lot that raising funds is storytelling, or pitching to investors is storytelling. So let's say I have an idea and I have to convince someone about it. How would you take an approach to it? Because at the end of the day, advertising is selling a product through storytelling, but here I have to sell it to investors. So if you could just off your mind, what is the storytelling in investments?
So, frankly, today what we do a lot of work is centered around, helping entrepreneurs get their narrative across to various audiences. Now, one crucial audience is, of course, the investors,
Right.
because they determine the future of this entrepreneur. The way an investor views a business is different from where the consumer views it,
So true.
or let's say a talent ecosystem views it. So one core capability that an entrepreneur needs to have is being able to adapt your core story to multiple situations,
Yes.
all of which comes from the same place, but it has to be directed towards the audience you're serving. Let me come back to the investor context. If you think of the investor, typically a good investor looks for return on his investment,
Yes.
right? But a good investor is also aware of the fact that he is an enabler for betterment of society. So he wouldn't want just his purse to be lined,
Yes.
but he would also want his investment to result in a better life for everyone. So when you pitch your idea to an investor, you must be able to discern what are the narratives to which you're feeding, right? So I want to share with you another construct which you might find very useful when you are crafting your narrative for an audience. I'll pull back a little and ask you this question. Consumers choose brands, right? Why does a consumer choose one brand over the other?
Because of how either it could be price point,
Yeah.
it could be, maybe I like the ambassador that, that's endorsing it, or maybe I've heard a review that this is good. But if I have to shift, it has to be a major decision that I have to make.
Correct. Now, let's assume that you have three brands in front of you. All three have the same price, same quality,
Correct.
and they're equally available to you.
Okay.
Which one do you choose?
Whatever my heart tells me.
I think therein lies the clue.
Yes.
Why do you say whatever your heart tells you?
Because it's like my gut feeling, okay, let me just choose, or maybe, so 2 is like my favorite number,
Okay.
or the middle thing, so I'll just choose that.
Okay. If you're a brand and your audience is like you, what should a brand then do?
So confusing.
Yeah. It's very simple. The brand must know your story before they jump and tell their story. Right? So let me tell you, the most important story, if you are an entrepreneur, is your audience's story.
True.
The story they are living. If it's a consumer, they are living a narrative, which is their life. I get up in the morning,
Yeah.
I do certain things because I want to get somewhere in life.
Correct.
That is my meta story,
Right.
right? All the things that I do in my life are things that I choose to push my meta story forward. So if you want your brand to be chosen, you should be able to enable his meta story. Tell the story that pushes your audience's meta story forward.
Wow. And for investors, so very controversial question, but investors usually invest using their emotions, and emotions could be fear of missing out,
Yeah.
right? It could be another thing, the founder is very passionate, so you're driven into that passion, that belief is there.
Yeah.
So these two factors, and there are multiple layers of emotions. So for an investor, how do you know their story? How do you make that assessment? Because consumers, you can get consumer insights. How for an investor would you change your storyline?
See, if you ask me, you must find a way to have that heart-to-heart talk with the investor before you make your pitch. If investors are unwilling to talk, we have to find ways to get a surrogate source for giving you the insight. Sometimes meeting a intermediary of some sort might give you. However, there is no better way to arm yourself for that conversation than knowing intuitively that this is what the investor's meta story is.
Yes.
He too has a meta story.
Yes.
And the meta story may not be generic, like you put it, I want return on investment. It may not be generic as saying that I'm, fear of missing out. Those may be, common, but most times there may be specific nuances which you may have missed out and many others may have missed out. I, for one, strongly believe that the investor community has been stereotyped. If you are an entrepreneur pitching to an investor, you must, much like a good marketer, try to cut through that invisible curtain, go inside and find out what is his meta story, what is his immediate reality. And without falsifying a narrative, tell the story that pushes his meta story forward. So, promising return on investment is not necessarily the only sign of a great, pitch. It's not even being emotional. I feel aligning your truth, your reason for doing your business with his meta story is very important. I used to phrase your reason for doing your business, which is my favorite word today, which is the purpose of your brand, the purpose of your business. If you can encapsulate your business in terms of the difference it's trying to make in the world and craft it in such a manner that it actually makes the investor sit up and say, hey, I want to be part of this, not because of fear of missing out, but because this is a life worth living and I want to enable this entrepreneur. Your purpose is the starting point for you to find the most inspiring version of your journey.
Right.
And pitch that appropriately to the audience so that they feel that this is a good journey to ally the entrepreneur with. So your purpose is something that you must be very clear of, and then look at the audience's meta story and tell your purpose in a manner in which the meta story of the audience is enabled.
Makes sense.
And this will apply not just to investor audiences, even when you're hiring talent, for example. People have to join companies and they have an array of options, but they will join a company where their meta story is pushed forward, right?
So
So most times the meta story is one of personal growth.
Yes.
Which company will enable my personal growth?
True.
And same will work with customers as well. At the end of the day, like I said in the beginning, it's all about knowing your audience's meta story and being the singular agent for pushing their meta story forward the best. That's what is the secret sauce of the best marketers.
Right. And coming to this, right, creativity, does it have a limit in terms of, when can I get exhausted? How do you keep your creativity running and how many hours are needed to ensure that you're good at being creative?
See, I've been in advertising, which is largely a commercial kind of creativity.
Right.
You get rewarded far beyond your effort. So in that sense, I can tell you that I've never had to tear my soul to do anything. There are creative people who have to do far hours to get their work out to the audience, especially expressive creativity, which is like a filmmaker or an artist or a musician. We are commercial artists. In that sense, our creativity is mostly for commercial gains for your clients and for yourself. However, being tired, being fatigued is a common factor in all creative kind of contexts. But if you have taken a life of creative endeavor, usually it's because you wanted to do it, right? And when you took that call, I'm going to be let's say a filmmaker, I'm going to be a poet, I'm going to be a musician, or I'm going to be a copywriter. Usually, it's because you don't see yourself doing anything else.
Yes.
You can't have a plan B. If you have a plan B, I can assure you, you won't last in a creative profession, because the day you hit a wall, you will go back to doing what was your plan B.
Right.
So rule number one for creativity is don't have a plan B.
Yes.
The second is, now that you don't have a plan B, what happens when you burn out? You just keep going.
Yeah.
Because with time you'll realize that the most creative ideas come when you think you've hit a wall and you want to give up. I
That's
think
so true.
most creative people know that. So burnout is a symptom of a great idea waiting very close to you.
Wow. It's like
So
light
you,
at the
you,
end of
you,
the
you
tunnel.
should not give in to it. If you give in to it, you're missing out on what is lying ahead of that burnout.
Right.
I love something which is a state of mind which might actually help you to prevent burnouts and let's say cope with burnouts. There is this famous psychologist called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He's
Okay.
written a book called Flow.
Okay.
Now, it's a very interesting book because he has actually captured what is the state of being of a creative person when he is in full flourish. Have you noticed how when you're doing your most creative work, you forget the sensation of time passing?
Yeah.
He calls that state flow. If you can get into a state of flow on an everyday basis when you do your work, burnouts are highly unlikely. However, reality being reality, it might hit you.
Yes.
But you must have ways to get back into the sense of flow. Because when you are in a sense of flow, what happens is your full capabilities come to the fore and the whole thing is effortless.
Wow. Yes. That's so
Flow is the most desired state for a creative person. Time, world, meals, and desserts, and all these things come out. Even alcohol goes out of the need state.
Yes.
You just want to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think great painters, great writers, great poets, filmmakers, editors, everyone knows this. And
True.
at a personal level, creativity is about accessing that state of flow and populating it as much as possible.
Wow, wonderful. I think it feels like I'm talking to a poet or a philosopher, and it's amazing.
Thank you.
So I think coming now to the more spicy or controversial parts. So what are your views on the cred advertisements?
Yeah. So cred is a very popular, communication campaign, well-known brand now. And if I were to look at it as a professional, I think typically when a brand tries to talk to an audience, it has to go from awareness to consideration, then there is trial, and then loyalty.
Right.
So typically a brand needs to be known. Somebody has to, create some kind of, consideration set. He has to put you into it. And then of course he must try you. And then if he likes you, he must come back and use it.
Yeah.
So this is what is called typically the marketing funnel. Now, cred has done a damn good job of being famous.
Yes.
It has got into the awareness set of
Yeah.
so many people. So if I say cred, everybody recognizes and they remember the communication and they feel, that titillation that came from watching the ad, the thrill of watching that ad is always there. How many people tried cred, or let's say put it into the consideration set, would signify the success of the first part of the communication. Then of course comes giving it a try and then loyalty. So if you ask me, purely from a professional perspective, I would say cred did a fantastic job of creating awareness. But to a great extent, they lost their steam there. Because they didn't take the brand and deploy it down the marketing funnel. See, a brand cannot only exist in communication.
Yes.
As a friend who's a professor told me, a brand has to be full funnel. When you say full funnel, what it means is through the marketing funnel, the brand must be equally vibrant. What did cred do to encourage consideration? What did cred do to encourage trial? What did cred do to encourage loyalty would determine success. I don't have the numbers, but my feeling is cred did a fantastic job of getting into your room and then ran out of steam in terms of making me do the remaining parts of the marketing funnel.
Yes.
So Where credits today is largely a function of how successful they've been in terms of being a brand across the funnel. My gut would tell me that they have not fully utilized their potential.
True. And what about those bizarre ads that are there, right? Like they did capture attention.
Yeah.
But, Rahul Dravid saying, मैं इंदिरा नगर का गुंडा हूँ,
Yeah.
to, seeing other celebrities in a very different avatar. Was that something, a new marketing strategy, or what are your views on that?
So yeah, I think the fact that sometimes communication is very distinctive,
Yes.
but let's say meaninglessly distinctive.
Yeah.
That becomes like question mark for a lot of marketers, whether that works or not. It's a debate going on right now among marketing professionals across maturity. Professionals are having different viewpoints. The point is, in today's cluttered marketplace, if you are not noticed,
Yes.
you have no chance down the marketing funnel. So getting noticed is a big milestone for brands. So fame creating advertising, or let's say advertising for the sole purpose of creating fame, has got its value.
Yes.
However, it is not how classically advertising was meant to work. It's everyday reality today that a brand tries to be famous so that at least they are able to get into the consideration set of the
Correct.
consumer.
Yes.
The point is, now that you've got the fame, don't expect the consumer to transact. If you want that to happen, you need to push yourself through the marketing funnel. What are you doing for consideration?
Right.
You need to fit yourself in those contexts as well. Find narratives which make you stand out there. What are you going to do for creating trial? Are you doing as much fame creating work for trial as well?
Right.
And of course, loyalty. So, fame creating advertising is a good first, let's say, first achievement for you. And a lot of brands seem to feel, that they've accomplished what is required by just that. But usually it runs out of fuel very soon,
Yes.
because the consumer does not see you as a brand at the other stages where actually you get to actually transact with him.
Yes. So I think that was great. For in terms of marketing, right? Brands obviously play a huge role in marketing, but apart from that, where all can a good brand or the storytelling work in other aspects apart from marketing?
So I think you have touched upon something that's very personal to me. I've always felt that the brand is a very powerful construct to tell stories about products and services, but this construct is so powerful beyond just marketing. In fact, the brand is, like I said, it's about putting an idea on something and then taking it to an audience with storytelling. If you think about it, a brand can be very powerful even in the way in which you manage talent to attract, to get them to come and work for your company. The same brand can be a platform. This same brand platform can be deployed for senior leadership to have a certain language.
Yes.
So the brand can inspire the language of more than just product narratives. So a lot of work we do is in that space. We help clients to see the multifarious ways in which the brand can be deployed so that they are able to create a very coherent kind of entity. The beauty of a brand being taken beyond just marketing is that when a consumer interacts with the company, at every touch point, the same brand comes alive, but in different ways.
Right.
So if you want to recruit people and you have a snazzy product brand, the person must be able to come there and work and feel that the same excitement of the product narrative is there in his work life as well.
Right.
Deploying that into work, which means interpreting the brand for culture.
Yes.
How do you trigger culture which is coming from the brand space?
Yeah.
How do you trigger leadership ethos which comes from the brand space? These are things that I believe have to be evolved, and that's a lot of work that we do is in that space. At the end of the day, we find that when a brand is alive in so many touch points, your marketing costs come down.
Oh, it's actually so true.
Because you can actually see the brand alive and your need to do communication in expensive media is far less. So if you're thinking brand and narratives, try and do it beyond just the selling context. Let a consumer encounter the brand in its full flourish in more than just marketing narratives.
Right. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I never thought that, brands can play a huge role in leadership. Maybe, yes, talent it can attract the right audience, but I think leadership also speaks a lot, especially, because they are representing the brand outside.
Yeah.
So I think for that it's very important. Coming to, your work, and obviously you've interacted with so many clients. Do you think clients stifle the creativity, right? Or sometimes are there annoying clients or ignorant clients who think that this is not going to work out?
So I think any creative person, when he tries to, do his work, there will be some kind of, reactive force. Uh, it's possible that sometimes the clients themselves have certain pre-existing notions on what kind of output they want, and they would kind of, coerce you into going in that direction. At that point, it can be quite frustrating as a creative person. But if you are a truly creative person, you will always try to find some way of imputing some originality in what you do. So the challenge really is, are you going to be, defeatist about the situation, or are you going to sally forward and say, hey, you know what, this client feels this way about the outcome, but here's what I'm going to do creatively to ensure that the client sees bigger, value in the outcome. My view is, any creative person, when he creates something, there are constraints. Sometimes it comes within the brief.
Yes.
The personality of the product, the proposition of the brand, etc. Those are constraints. Now, actually, for a creative person, the constraints are the space from which his biggest ideas come.
True.
So here's a tip for creative people. When you start a project, don't just think of all the positive things which are stacked on your side. Think of the constraints, and often when you invert those constraints in your idea, you find that you get something very original. So there is this popular notion that think outside the box. What is the box? The box is actually the constraint. But in creative situations, especially in commercial creativity, you're forced to think within those constraints. So in commercial creativity, thinking outside the box is often impossible.
Yeah.
How do you think within the box? The trick is to use the box as your launchpad for creative. So making your constraint the starting point for your creative, or let's say the detour from the norm, is actually the secret sauce of many creative people. One of which is the client's, let's say, bias towards certain, approaches. Leverage that. If a client likes only this kind of work, take that constraint and transcend that. And at the end of it, you will surprise yourself. So for a creative person, being fixated about what constitutes creative itself is a big barrier, and that's when it feels frustrating. Every creative person will find a way to be creative in any context. And sometimes a client can be, especially a constraining client, can be the biggest launchpad for breakthrough ideas.
That is true. That is weirdly true. I experienced that.
Yeah.
And one very basic fundamental question: what is the difference between marketing and advertising?
Okay. So it's one is actually the larger context. One is, let's say, a subset of the other. Marketing is at the heart of it about taking a product or a service into the world of the consumer so that he is able to transact and use it, and he gives you money in return. Marketing is the act of taking it to the consumer. Like I said, you don't just take the product like it is and take it to the consumer. You package it, you put an idea on top of it, you put it in media and publicize it, you take distribution and take it to the consumer so that he can access it, and of course you price it in such a manner that it fits his wallet. That's marketing. Advertising is that one part which I told you, which is about communicating ideas about that product.
Got it.
So Marketing is about taking products and bringing it to the world of the consumer. Advertising is about those ideas that you put around products, taking those ideas to consumers. So it's a small part of marketing.
Got it. I think brands usually confuse marketing and advertising very blatantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. Okay, now coming to a rapid fire.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to be, I'm just going to shoot out brand names to you. You have to tell me what emotion they, they make you feel, or what emotion they want at least
Yeah.
for you, right? So let's start off from the top of my head. Let's start off with Microsoft.
Microsoft, I would say, is empowerment.
Okay, Apple.
Apple would be luxury today.
Okay, Chanel.
Chanel would be, I would say, olfactory luxury, I would say.
Okay, wow. Something like Zomato.
Zomato would be joyous convenience.
Okay, Cred.
Cred would be maverick convenience.
Byju's.
Byju's, in its original intent, I would say, was democratizing education.
Okay, Colgate.
Colgate would be healthy teeth.
Okay, but emotion?
Emotion is difficult to impute for Colgate because, at some level, it's you could say protection. Yeah.
Protection. Okay, security maybe.
Yeah,
that kind of.
yeah.
Zepto.
Zepto is again, hyper convenience.
Got it. And Salesforce.
Salesforce is, efficiency.
Okay. Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola is joy.
Happiness. I think they've
Yeah,
established
joy
that.
and happiness. Yeah. Optimism.
KFC.
KFC is, I would say, I think it is the hedonistic love for chicken. So I would say hedonism is what, because we want to
Okay.
binge on chicken.
Okay.
So
Let's say cigarettes. Like, let's take an example. Marlboro or.
Marlboro is about masculine freedom.
Okay. Axe.
Axe is about irresistibility to the female gender. Okay. Masculine irresistibility. Let me put it
Okay. And something like Forest Essentials.
Forest essential is exotic beauty,
Exotic.
exoticism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Patanjali.
Patanjali would be traditional efficacy, tradition.
Tradition. IKEA.
IKEA would be, I would say, great design which is made accessible. So the emotion is one of aesthetics for everyone. I'm just thinking that way.
Okay, no problem. Boat.
Boat is, I think it's affordable modernity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mama Earth.
Mama Earth would be, I think it's the maternal, the maternal love,
Care.
maternal love. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Cool. I think these were just some of the brands off my head, but I think it was lovely to have you, Thomas.
Thank
I
you.
think your insights, your journey, and the experiences that you have had, I think, are still relevant. And I think the future of advertising is going to stay there. Storytelling is obviously very, very important.
True.
So thank you for thank you for being here. And yes, I think thanks for gracing our office. I think it's been an absolute honor to have you here.
It's a pleasure, Neha. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank you.